Thank you for joining our session on Let's Talk Mental Wellness. My name is Busisiwe Mahlare. I'm the founder of Rodi Wellness, and tonight we will be graced with the beautiful presence of Anele Ndlovu, and I will give her an opportunity to introduce herself shortly. But before we continue, I just wanted to give context for this evening's meeting. So at Rodi Wellness this month, we are focusing on the theme of creating an environment for healing. So I had just been pondering on an idea that when you get cut or burned, when you go to the doctor, what they do is they sort of create an environment for the body to heal by giving you medication to apply around the wound and sort of just allowing the body to do what it was meant to do. So basically that is the basis that we are focusing on, or the theme of this month. And one of the things that we think at Rodi Wellness also creates an environment for healing is mental wellness. So without further delay, Anele, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Good evening, and happy Tuesday. As Ubusi has said, I am Anele Ndlovu, and I'm today's guest. I don't know how she wants me to introduce myself. If you can give me some guidance, how things are done at Rodi, so that I follow in the right manner. And yeah,
So at Rodi, you are at home. I
okay.
want you to feel at home, relaxed, comfortable. It's a safe space, no judgment here. And I just want you to tell us what you do, like the advocacy work you do, to give you a direction. I remember we met, I think, in March or April, and when we met, I was just taken by your your I don't know, for lack of a better word, but your honesty and your bravery for mental health wellness, and your ability to speak openly about it. And what also attracted me to you was the fact that you were Christian and you were not shying away from this topic and you were facing it head on. And so I would like our viewers to understand more of the background of what you do as a mental health advocate and the work you do. And you can just give us a brief summary of what you also do at Tea with Anele.
Okay. No, that's fine. Okay, so again, I'm Anele Ndlovu, and I am excited to be your guest tonight and to be hosted by Rodi Wellness. Like Ubusi said, we met around mid-March, and I was also fascinated about what Rodi does, and we struck up a friendship that has continued up until now. And I think the work that she does around wellness, women's wellness, and the work that I do around mental health, women empowerment is very aligned, which brought us to today. So I am the founder of the Tea with Anele Ndlovu, which is an started off as a platform and now is an organization that this month is actually celebrating 5 years. And the work that the Tea does is mainly focused on mental health advocacy, gender-based violence and femicide awareness and activism, as well as awareness around addiction and recovery, specifically alcohol addiction, women's wellness, women empowerment, and things like that. And how this started, it might be one of the questions that Ubusi asks, but I do get the question a lot about how the Tea started, why the Tea started, and the work that I now do. Before before 2020, I was in corporate, a marketing and communications professional. I'd been working in corporates for many, many years. And you know how it is. I'm originally from KZN, but I was living in Joburg, had a nice job, had a nice title. Everything was just perfect, And then we had COVID hit, we had lockdown, companies were not doing so well. And in June 2020, unfortunately, I was told at the beginning of that month that my role had become redundant. And at the end of the month, would be the last time that I'm actually working for that organization. And on the day, I remember it very well. It was the 3rd of June in the afternoon. I was devastated. And worse, this message came when I was on Teams. We were Teams, so it wasn't even like I'm having an in-person interaction with my manager. All I wanted was for this call to end so that I can just cry because I'm like, what does she mean? Me, I've given so much to my job and my role and all that. And I did have a good cry. I told my siblings, I told a friend or two. A friend of mine was like, you can't be alone, come to my house, whatever it is. The following day, my sisters. But after a while, I was just like, okay, I'll be fine, guys. I've got this great CV, I've got the networks and the work experience and as I started telling people, because now I need to job hunt again, as I started telling people what I was going through, I then found that the company actually hadn't followed the correct retrenchment process. Now, I've never been through a retrenchment before. I knew people who had been through it, but I never really spoke to them about, um, what the process is. And as I was reading the emails and the communication from work and what they were saying, I was like, no, you didn't follow the right process. So in the midst of all that, there was a lot of back and forth until I was advised by some friends who are in the legal space that this actually is a case that should go to the CCMA. So here I am trying to find a new job, and also now working on a case for the CCMA, trying to be strong. Things are going to be fine. At most, maybe I'll be at home for about a month or 2 or 3, you know. And in that moment and in that space, in those moments, I was denying how I really, really felt. I was really angry. I know this. I was really disappointed. How could they do this? And the way I started to cope in those moments, was I didn't want to feel anything because I was like, I need to be strong. I need to focus on building this case and whatever it is. So I started drinking a bit more. I used to drink on, when you go to birthday parties, celebrations, brides, you'll have a glass or two of wine or whatever it is. But now that picked up. And it picked up because I was also at home. So I'm waiting for after work, I'm waiting for the weekend. And the more the back and forth with work was going, the more frustrated I was getting, and the more then I was also drinking. Um, and I now know, that when you don't face something head on in the moments that it's happening, or at least after a short time that it's happened, you start to get into a depressive state, the anxiety starts building and all that. But I completely was like, I need to focus on this case, and then I need to focus on getting the work. Things didn't go well between us at the CCMA case, which made everything worse. By this time, it's like 2, 3 months afterwards, there's no prospect of work. People are saying, send your CV and. To cut a long story short, I was literally like unraveling and I was losing myself. I'm a person who likes being around people. I'm a person who likes gatherings, who likes going to visit people, who likes planning things. Let's do a lunch, let's do this. I started not wanting to see people. I didn't want to go to anything. I didn't want to visit people. I didn't want people to visit me. Um, and it took 7 months. So now it's 2021, and it took my sisters actually seeing that no, something is really, really wrong with this girl. And for them to sit me down and actually find out what is going on. We know you are frustrated. There's no job prospects and all that, but what is happening? And they then took me to a psychiatrist. I was diagnosed with depression. Um, and at that point, I had also been suicidal, but it's obviously not something I had spoken to anyone about. But the psychiatrist asked me certain questions, which led to her seeing, and she did confirm with me that you're actually suicidal. We need to really quickly book you into a psychiatric facility so that we can help you cope with everything that has happened. It being the time that it was with COVID and lockdown and a lot of people being under pressure and depressed, there were no beds, in Joburg, and we were waiting, and it was decided I must go home back to KZN in Pietermaritzburg just to wait until the psychiatrist finds space for me. And when I came home, like Ubusi mentioned, I am Christian and I come from a Christian home, and alcohol is a no-no in my parents' home, and we all know this. But the way I was at that point and the way I had was so far gone in my addiction and in how depressed I was and just in how I had lost myself. I didn't care even about the rules. I didn't even care about respecting my parents. I would find ways to sneak alcohol in. And this is also something I learned much later, a couple of months after that when you are addicted, you shouldn't be doing something, but because your mind has been programmed that there is this thing that is missing that we need, you find ways to feed that habit and to feed the addiction. And I remember everyone was very stressed about me at home, my parents, my siblings, friends. People were just like, we don't know how to help this girl. And I really started feeling the pressure of I'm causing so many people so much pain and so much anxiety because they now have to look out for me and they have to look after me. And I'm like, I'm 36 years old and I'm back to living with my parents. It was just really messy. And I decided the only way that this is going to end, the pain that I'm feeling, the stress that I'm feeling, and also the pain and the pressure and the stress and the anxiety that I'm causing people around me, the way it's all going to end is if I'm no longer in the picture. And the only way I can not be in the picture is if I take my life. And so in May, towards the end of May in 2021, I drank 60 sleeping pills. I drank all the medication that had been prescribed to me by my psychiatrist. And I, like whenever I think about this, my family had also been in a session with a psychiatrist. She had explained to them that when I take the medication, 8 o'clock, I must be in the bed, no more movement so that I can, get some sleeping routine going. So I knew, and then the next time I would see everyone was like 7 in the morning when I woke up. So I knew that this is going to work because no one disturbs me. Once I'm in bed at 8, no one comes into the room that I'm using, and I see everybody at 7 in the morning. And I always say it can only be God, you know, because that night I drank the pills and I could feel, and for me, I've never used drugs, so I don't know how it feels to be high. So, but I felt as if I'm now lifting off the bed and like the ceiling was opening and I was like, okay, it's happening. It's happening. I can feel that I'm now being lifted into death, I guess. I'm going to die. This is working. And as I'm in this euphoria, if you can call it, I then hear my mother saying this in Zulu, and she's like, "Waphuze wonke amaphilisi," which means she drank all her pills. And for me, in that moment, and I'm just like, okay, this is working, I'm dying, I'm dying. But then I'm hearing her voice and I'm just like, but she wasn't with me. Is she with me? Is she dying with me? There was a bit of a state of confusion because I'm like, I'm sure I was alone, but I can also hear this woman's voice. And I shouldn't be hearing her voice because she should be sleeping. And the next time I then woke up was in the hospital. Um, and the reason why I say it's God, because like I said, no one ever, once I had taken my medication for the night, no one came into the room maybe they did come in to check on me while I was sleeping and I just didn't know. But for me, I wasn't supposed to die. And fast track, I get a bed in a psychiatric facility in KZN, in the Midlands, and I spent 2 weeks there. And this is now getting to when I started the work that I do around mental health advocacy is I started speaking to friends, started speaking to some family members about how I felt, the depressive state that I was in, the alcohol abuse, the suicide attempts, being in the hospital, seeing a psychiatrist. And at that time, I was also getting like an infusion, like a drip to kind of detox the alcohol from my body. So I'm telling people this, I am very open, like Busi said. So I'm sharing this with people around me, and some people are like, "Oh, are you sure you should be talking about this so freely?" And I'm like, I don't know, but hey, this is what has happened. This is what I've gone through. And when I got to the psychiatric hospital, a lot of people weren't as open, and they weren't as open to people around them. They weren't as open to families, they weren't as open to colleagues, whatever it was. And I sat there and I was just like, this is unfortunate because, especially in the facility that we were in, it was like a little B&B kind of thing. Your meals are prepped, all this is done. There's a gym, there are games, there are puzzles. It's really, besides the sessions that you go through, you are on a little vacation kind of thing, a little break, if I can call it that. And I felt it's great that we are here and we are getting the teachings of how to help ourselves heal and how to be more self-aware. But when we all leave, we're going to go back to probably the environments that caused us to be back here. And if we don't have the right support, we're going to find ourselves either back at a similar facility or we're going to be in a worse off position. But for me, because I had even after each day, I would share with people, this is what we learned, this is what this occupational therapist said, this psychiatrist said this psychologist said this, our psychiatrist encouraged us to journal every night. And I just felt, I know I'm going to be supported because people know what it is that I'm going through. They are going to sessions with my medical team, but the people here might not have the same support because no one knows where they are. And that predominantly the people who were not able to be honest were Black people, and there were some Indian people and colored people as well. And I felt this is the reason why there's such a stigma around mental health and such a taboo around mental health, because it's seen as such a terrible thing, in Black communities and in brown communities, if we say. And after I got out end of June, I just thought, no, there's got to be a reason why I've gone through this, the reason why I was there, the reason why yeah, I'm forward and I'm able to speak about these things. I'm like, okay, God, you put me there because you know I'm not going to keep quiet about my experiences. You know I'm going to share. And I then decided the people who were there with me are professionals, they are parents, they live in the suburbs, they have nice cars, they have these nice lives. And I decided that I'm going to use myself and use my story to change the narrative because whenever, especially in Black communities, when we think about mental health challenges, we think it's the crazy, dirty man or woman who is now living on the streets and eating out of the bin. When we think about an alcohol addict or a drug addict, it's the uncle who's drinking and asking for 5 rand to go buy cigarettes or booze at the tavern. But people would never think someone like me went through all that. And also suicide, like, what do you mean you tried to kill yourself? And people would say that, but like, you come from such a good family, look at you. But those are things that happened, and those are things that were happening to people like some of us probably on this call. And I just felt I want to use my story, I want to use my experiences because I know for sure, just from my experience of the people that I was admitted with, people like you and I are going through a lot. But because there's such a shame and a stigma around mental health challenges, we can't speak up about it or we feel we can't get help. And I started sharing my story. I had an event on the 9th, 8th of August, 2021, just to commemorate Women's Day and also to bring some women together to say, we've been through so much with COVID, we've been through so much with the lockdowns. People lost jobs, people lost cars, people lost homes, people lost family members. Let's just come together and give thanks that through everything we are here. And on that day, people were just showing their gratitude for life, but they were talking so openly about the stress that they were under, the depression, the anxiety, the everything that they'd been through. And I remember sitting and looking at these 35 women um, and being like, oh my goodness, this can't be a once off. maybe we'll have another session. And even the ladies were like, we need another session, And then in September, we had another event, and this one was specifically titled, and the theme was prioritizing your mental health. And I even invited a psychologist. And that then became a thing of the tea with Annele Ndlovu. And even the name was, okay, I just need a name for the August event. And in September, we'll change the name. But everybody loved it so much. They were like, it's catchy. Um, it's all about conversations, coming together, sharing over tea or the tea. Let's gossip about our mental health and things like that. And that's how the journey with the mental health advocacy came about from my own experience, but also from the experiences and stories of other people, and saying, because I'm so comfortable in talking so openly about my life, I'm going to use that to help other people get help, to show people that this is what I went through. This is the help that I got. You can also get help. You don't have to suffer alone. You don't have to think you're the only one going through this. We're all going through something, but there is help. And here we are, 5 years later, we've done, I think, probably 30 events. We started doing lives in October because people from all over the country were just like, please come to our city. And I'm like, I can't be everywhere. However, let's have conversations around this. And we started every Thursday, would have conversations on different elements of our lives that are impacted and impacts mental health, relationships, work, finances, our physical health when we are sick, when parents are sick, caring for, especially parents with dementia, everything, children, being a parent, menopause, andropause, so many aspects of life, because all those will impact our mental health in a certain way. And we then, a year later, introduced what is called the men's tea, because men would then be like, but why aren't you not doing anything for us? And I'm like, guys, organize yourselves, why don't you organize yourselves? And they're like, yeah, we see how great the women organize themselves. And then I thought, okay, let me then organize the men, get the speakers, get the everything, get them in a room, organize lunch the same way that I do for the ladies, but then remove myself from there, because we know the men won't then speak openly if there's a girl in the room or whatever. And so 2022 November, we started the men's tea. Similarly, we also do lives with them where it's a gent who's hosting the conversations and running with the conversations. And yeah, that is who I am. That is how we got to being in the mental health advocacy space, and mostly the women's empowerment space, because it started off as a woman empowerment journey. Just like today, when Nubusi had said, woman to woman conversation, it started like that because I just felt, especially with Black women, we don't really advocate for ourselves as much, whether it's in the workspaces, in our family spaces. And I wanted to provide a space where we could do that. But the tea just evolved from being just centered around women empowerment and women leadership into more centered around mental health. Because through the women empowerment and women leadership sessions, mental health became like a central key in the conversations. And I was like, this thing is bigger than just focusing on getting women to be their own advocates and being their own spokespeople and things like that. This is actually about, it's a public health issue, because mental health, I believe, is a public health issue, globally. It's not just us in South Africa or in Africa who go through these. Across the world, mental health challenges are, they're a crisis, and so the tea has taken that evolution in being more centered around mental health. And then there's the gender-based violence and femicide activism that we also do, where we educate people, because again, GBVF has an impact on mental health. When you are a survivor, a victim, everything about your life is impacted. Your state of mind, your emotional states, how you show up, how you interact with people, and all that leads back to your mental health. And so we've been doing this work doing sessions like this, speaking, running workshops, writing columns. I've had the pleasure of writing columns for newspapers, doing radio work, doing some TV work, being a commentator on issues that impact gender-based violence and femicide, issues that impact our mental health, alcohol addiction and recovery as well. And just to add, on Monday, the 31st of August, it's my fourth sober versary. So I'm celebrating 4 years of sobriety. So I'm so excited. Thank you. I hope that's a good enough introduction.
Thank you, Anele. I'm sure our viewers are getting to really know you and love the Anela, and who is like who just wears her heart on her shoulders, and she's just so you create a safe space. And in your introduction and just talking about your background and what you went through, you mentioned about how us as Black women, also as Black people in general, we don't necessarily talk about mental health. And when we think about mental health, we think of people who are in institutions and so on. And it reminds me of my story and why mental wellness is so important to me in my personal capacity because I remember during the pandemic, I had we had experienced a lot of losses with our close relatives during that time. And then I was fortunate enough that towards the end of COVID, I think when the lockdown was lifted and so on, we eventually had our wedding celebration with my husband. And things looked like they were looking beautiful on the outside. And then I fell pregnant with my second daughter, and things looked like everything was like falling into place. We moved to a new place. Everything looked like it was going well. But then after having my daughter, I just went into this very dark place that I could not put my finger on and be like, okay, what is this? Because, growing up sick because I was diagnosed with endometriosis at 16, it does a number on your mental wellness. Like you approach life in different ways when you are sick most of your life, and you learn to adapt coping mechanisms, which are not necessarily the best mechanisms to cope. And I would remember taking medication. I preferred medication that made me drowsy because then I wouldn't have to deal with everything that's really happening around me. And a lot of the time when I look back, during that time, I can't remember everything very well. It's not clear because I was like, my body was there fully, but my mind and like me, I wasn't fully there. So I hear that very well. And I didn't have the language to communicate. So I did do a lot of therapy, and therapy gave me a lot of language to what was happening. But I was ashamed that I'm going to therapy. I mean, like, like I could not believe that I'm finding myself in this situation. So it was a hush hush thing. Like hush, this is going to therapy, but you don't discuss it with anyone. And and I really hear that, and how we mask like everything is going well, but we're not really honest about the wounds that we experience as women. And it being Women's Month, it's very dear to me because I know as women we carry lots of hats.
Yeah.
And many times we find ourselves healing whilst we then still have to now raise our kids and be healthy for them, and it just is a lot. It's just a lot. And yeah, and I can really relate to what you are saying, and especially when you got to your rock bottom where you actually were like, I think maybe everybody would be better without me. I remember I got to that place where I would feel, or not even feel, I would literally hear like voices telling me that you're useless, like you're always sick, you're always in bed, like why are you here? Your husband will find another wife, your kids will finally get a mom who can actually do something with them. So those voices then started becoming louder in my head, and it's like, okay, you just here, you're just taking up oxygen, like jump into the dam already. So my psychologist and I started coming up with safeguards of where I shouldn't go and where I can go because I was I was like
Yeah.
a risk. And And I couldn't at that time link what I was going through with my faith, if I'm honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I think I had a conviction during that time that like I would walk towards the dam and feel like, okay, let me just do this. But at the same time, I would hear, and I believe it was the Holy Spirit saying, you're going to hell. Don't do this. So like I was conflicted. I didn't know what to do. So I would just then stay away and I would be always crying and stuff until I feel like eventually I cried out to God and He answered. And I'm here today. But let's go back to
Yeah.
you. Let's go back to you. Do you think that I like perhaps your identity as Anele was before this whole everything that you went through was too much attached to things and stuff and your accomplishments? And do you think your confidence was more in stuff and people more than God? And do you think that was maybe the thing that really, like, I don't know, caused the bottom to fall out? Because when
Yeah.
what you believed was who you are, like, wasn't there anymore, it was like, who am I and what am I here for? So,
Yeah, absolutely. And I love this question, and it's something that I also like speak a lot on because I do know a lot of people share my sentiments in the sense that you become your the things that you acquire, you become the things that you've achieved. So it was you've got the degrees and you've got this title and you work for this company. And so you show up as I am so and so who does this and this, you know. And so my whole like my career and all that was definitely my identity. My reputation was very much tied into what I did. It was very much tied into where I spent my time and all that. So when I was told that my role had become redundant, and there were other people, so I wasn't the only person. Um, and I remember the other people bounced back probably 3 months after everything. And later, when I also had then gone through therapy, gone through admission, and I had the language and I started to understand and the self-awareness was there, the reason why I didn't bounce back as quickly as everyone else is because I no longer knew who I was outside of that role. So when they said the role is redundant, I didn't hear it as the role. I heard it as anele is redundant. There is no use for anele, not the role. And I took it very personally because now I'm like, who am I without being manager of, or I work in a company that is at Melrose Arch or whatever. Um, and when I was in admission, they like the occupational therapist and the psychologist, they really worked hard in trying for me to find who am I outside of all this because they were like, right now you don't have that, but you are still alive. So there is who are you? You know, we need to help you to find who are you outside of work because now there is no job. And also, who are you when you are not a mom, when you're not a sister, when you're not a daughter, when you're not a friend? Who are you, nje, as Anele? Who are you? That took a while because I honestly didn't know. So I'd be like, I don't know. I don't know who I am. Um, and we worked on it. You'd have to find ways to describe yourself, find ways that you see yourself. And I remember even one of the first questions that my psychologist in the center had asked me was, why do you think you exist? Why do you think you were created? And I was like, I don't know. He's like, it's fine, keep that in the back of your mind. We'll keep coming back to that question. And even post admission, I was home, I had started the team, and literally out of nowhere, I was just like, I was born to touch souls, heal people, and transform lives. And I remember sending my psychologist a message. I was like, I know, and he called me. He's like, that is what we were working on. And so now I even then through that, I learned that and this is how I now introduce myself, is I am an inspirational, influential, impactful, healing servant leader. That's who I am. And then I will come and say, I am the founder of The Tea with Annelyn Ndlovu. I am a marketing and communication specialist. I am this, this, this. But I start off with, this is my essence and this is my purpose. And that's helped then not being so tied to positions because I know these things we can lose. But as long as you are alive, you can't lose who you are. So you can't hold on to, but I'm the founder of this and I created this, because the tea can also just end maybe one day. And then, who am I when there is no tea? Who am I when there's no marketing work? But I'll still always be inspirational, influential, impactful, and all the other stuff, you know. So I do always encourage people this, that build the career, build the business, but don't lose yourself in the career. Don't lose yourself in the business, because it can just disappear. And then you are left wondering, who are you outside of this? When there's no money, when there's no deals coming in, when there's no business, when the company closes down, then you're just like, oh my gosh, I've completely lost myself because my everything was tied to this. So build, but also have a life and have an identity outside what you are building. You are more than just these things that you are building. And it also helps because even when maybe you're going through something and work is challenging and life is challenging, and even with me, like sometimes I go through so much and I'm just like, but I'm inspirational, I'm impactful, I'm influential, how does that person show up? I heal, I lead, I serve. How does that person show up? Because even like sometimes even posting, even doing something like this, like, and I'm invited to something and I'm like, oh, I really don't feel like it. I'm so tired. It's been such a long day. But I'm like, okay. But firstly, you've made the commitment. And also, you said you inspire. You said you lead, you said you serve. So go out there and do that. But if it was tied to something else outside of that, I would be like, oh, Moose is not even paying me. So really, she can find someone else, or she can just read my story. She's seen my other lives or whatever it is. But now that things are not tied to positions, I then am always able to come back to, but am I living as my core essence? Am I living in my purpose? And I remind myself of that. I'm like, okay, let's take a break. Maybe I'm overwhelmed. What's happening around me? But then let's get back to inspire, to influence, to impact.
Thank you for your honesty, because at least I hear that it's a journey. You haven't arrived. It's an ongoing journey, which is quite a relief that we are also letting the ladies and the gentlemen tuned in know that this is a journey. You don't ever really get to a point where you arrive, but you just make progress every single day. And then let's talk about, um, when I was going through the struggle, a lot of people, I had asked them, please pray for me, please pray for me,
Mm,
please pray for
mm,
me. And I felt like sometimes I would pray also about this issue, and I would be like, okay, I still don't feel better, you know? And for the Christian going through that, can you take them through what is the role of prayer in mental health? Because what I now in hindsight learned is that praying is for me basically telling God that, okay, this is where I'm at. And in your wisdom, can you help me get out of this, whatever I'm
mm.
going through? I'm not taking away that God is a miracle working God and he can come and heal you instantly. But what happens when he doesn't do that? How does he then answer your prayer? Because you can find other people say that, oh, I went into church and I had the spirit of heaviness. It came out and, whoa, thank you, Jesus. I don't have it anymore. And then you think to yourself, I've been fasting for 40 days and 40 nights and I'm still having this thing. Lord, are you being unjust, So now looking back, how does an answered prayer look for mental health? And not just, but because we're concentrating on mental health, but all instances, how does an answered prayer look like
Yeah,
for mental health?
yeah. That's such a great question, and it's a great question because I have it, you have it, a lot of people will have it, and we will hear a lot of times where people say, just pray, just pray. Yes, absolutely, I agree. Pray. And for me, it's when you pray, the wisdom comes, right? And that wisdom can come in, you need to actually be admitted
Yeah.
so that there are people who can really help you get to the healing, you know? And maybe the prayer will be, you need to go to therapy or you need to fast. There are so many ways. So for me, I always say things like, God wants us to heal. He doesn't want us just to live um, in the valley of the shadow of death. And He'll send people to come pull us out of that valley. And for me, the people who pulled me out of that valley were my treatment team. You know, it was my family that made sure that I go there, and it was the treatment team to say, we need to get you to be better. You need to continue with therapy. And you also need to take medication, you know, and the medication parts, because I know a lot of people are like, I don't want to take it. And I always look at it as, think of someone who's diabetic, think of someone who has high blood pressure or low blood pressure, you know, for them to live a healthy and good life, they need to take their medication. It's not God saying, oh, you don't trust in me, now you are relying on medication. It's for you to thrive, for you to be able to make it to the next day and the next day, to still live your purpose that God has called you for, you have diabetes, you have to take this medication. You know, similarly with mental health related issues, and it's not everyone, and I want to stress that not everybody is going to be put on medication. But if you are put on medication, please take it. It is for your own good. I was on medication for about, let's say, 3 years, 2023 or 2021 to about 2023. And there would be times where I'd be like, oh, I'm fine now. After a couple of months, oh, I'm fine now. And then my psychiatrist or the psychologist or even the GP would ask, but who said it's time for you to go off the medication? It wasn't time until after some assessments and after some sessions, it was actually we can wean you off the medication. So I still pray, but I still get overwhelmed and I therapist or I still need to call my coach. Those are the people that are there to help. We speak about destiny helpers and things like that. Why can't we see mental health providers and healthcare providers as destiny helpers? Destiny helpers to ensure that we live, like I said earlier, if your mental health is impacted, it's very hard for you to do a lot of things because you are going to want to stay in bed the whole time. You are going to not be as productive. You're going to doubt yourself a lot. You're going to question yourself a lot. You're just going to be overcome and so overwhelmed. And so, if you are then provided with carers who can get you out of that so that you can take it one day at a time, take it 1 hour at a time. You get more productive. You're taking care of yourself a bit more. Use them, use them. And the nice thing now is they are, and I love it, psychologists who will say that they are Christian. So even they healing and they teaching is very Christian based. You can find people who will speak specifically to your faith so that as you are going through your mental health challenges, they are also there to help you with your spiritual walk. And it's not one or the other, it's both. You can use both and it can help you get out of a rut that you're in or get out of the valley of darkness that you're in into the light. And that's what we need. Um, we need everybody to just, for me, it's that. For me, it's there is healing out there. Don't think just because you've prayed and you believe in God, the minute you call a therapist, it means now that your faith has diminished or you are doubting God. No, it's not that. It's God has provided people to help. Use the people. And what I also say around this, Busi, is there will be, you'll go to a psychologist. Like when I was admitted after my suicide attempt, there is a psychologist that I saw in the 4 days that I was in the hospital. But we really didn't find each other, if I can call it that. So when I was admitted, they found a different psychologist for me, you know. And so even with that, just because this person has been brought in, it doesn't mean you have to stick to this person. You'll also feel like, I there's a bit of a misalignment here. Can I rather find someone? It's okay for you to do that because this is a person that you're going to be spending a lot of time with. You have to be comfortable with them. You have to be aligned with them. And if your spirit is just telling you, this is not the person, please don't continue because then what you will do is you won't go for help. And probably then you'll be like, God, you see, it's not working. And then probably you pray less and you believe in God less because you're just like, it's not working. No, sometimes that person is just not the right person to help you. There's someone else who can help you. Like I said, I had that psychologist. I found another one that I saw for a very long time, and then he moved cities, and I had to find someone else, you know. But don't think just because you are going through that you are now a disbeliever or anything like that. No, absolutely not. I really, really believe that God sends people to help you. God sends people to guide you. And you will know if this person is for you and you will know if this person is not for you in terms of your mental health wellness.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you, thank you, thank you for that. Because I am also a strong believer that when we pray, we don't get the convenience to choose how we want our prayers answered, you know? And most of the time, when God does decide or when He does send our answer, it's usually inconvenient, you know?
Yeah,
And it might be out of your comfort zone, but get the help you need, you know? It's very, very important. I know my psychologist, like, he gave me the brutal truth even when I didn't like it, and I threatened to fire him quite a few times when it would get very tense. But I stuck it out because I could see the it's like it was healing pains that I was going through.
mhm,
Things that I didn't want to face that he had to force me and walk me through and say, we're gonna face this. Because what I realize as Christians is that we get wounded, you know?
yeah,
Our minds get wounded as we live our lives. And we need to get ways to deal with these wounds and not push them under the carpet. Because 10 years later, you have a stroke because you were keeping all these things in and you didn't have any way to actually process them. And that brings me to this question. What are the um, practical ways that you can advise ladies on how to walk this journey? And please, this is not medical advice. This is for
mhm.
educational purposes. And this is also us sharing our experience and how we overcame, or let me not say overcame because we have not gotten there. We can say we are done with this journey.
Oh
But
yeah, no,
on
but you
our
you've
journey,
overcome that
that
part. The
part,
journey
yes,
continues, but you
yeah.
you keep overcoming, you keep overcoming. So you can I would use overcoming. Use it.
Come, okay, all right. What are the practical ways that you could advise our users? And then when you're answering that, I'd like you to also touch on something. In my journey of healing, especially from the endo and overcoming, I had this conviction that I should stop owning it and I should disown it and actually sort of like it's sort of like speaking back to the thing that feels like it's so big and it's about to overwhelm and overcome you. So, for instance, today, I do not consider myself, when I introduce myself, I hardly or I'm very mindful to not associate with the endometriosis because it's not who I am and it's not who I want to be associated with. So I'm very, very careful of associating with it, you know. And if I do have to talk about it, I'm very careful of calling myself an endo warrior. No, 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 no. I'm not warring with this thing. I have overcome it. So even if the thought comes and says, "Oh, Busi, what if this happen?" Nah, we don't do that. We've overcome you,
Mm,
so you are under my
mm.
feet, sort of thing. How does that also play a role? Can you please then answer that for us?
Yeah. Before I answer that, I just want to read a comment from Uzama Kumalo where she says, we forget that God is a practical God too,
Mm,
you know.
yeah,
And it's in the past couple of days, yeah, like the past 4 or 5 days. So I'm very big, I'm a very big social media user, especially Twitter, X, whatever you call it, and Facebook and LinkedIn and all that. And in the past, I think every single day, different users on X have been quoting the same passage where Elijah was like, I can't do this, God, take it, take me. And it's like God was like, rest, sleep, eat, you know. So now just reading Zama's comments and this conversation that we are having, it's God didn't just take it away from him. He's like, sleep, I'll give you something to eat. I'll give you rest, you know? And that's how his prayers were answered. He was like, take me, take me, take me now. And I mean, that's the thing I had. I was like, I need to go now. And he's like, no, you're not going to go now, but you'll go to the hospital and you'll get rest and you'll get help. And then you'll get admitted somewhere else where you'll get further help because I still have work for you to do. So I think we need to also look at that the practicality of it is sometimes just rest and eat and take a nap, you know, be under the shadow of the Almighty. Um, and then to answer your question around the practical ways, I have I have what I call like my mental health toolkit or toolbox. Someone called it a vanity case, and I was like, "Oh, that sounds nice." My first thing is definitely my faith, you know. And sometimes I'm just like, that's a given. Sometimes I don't even count it because it's like my faith is my stronghold and my cornerstone. And after that, it's self-awareness. And self-awareness is very high up because when you are aware of yourself, you become a bit more honest. So the self-honesty kicks in, the self-love kicks in, the self-respect kicks in. And with self-awareness, it is you know yourself. You know when you are okay. You know when you are not okay. And the self-honesty is um, I need to do something about what is happening. You know, a lot of us, myself included, and sometimes I still do this where I run from myself, but especially back then, is we don't want to sit with ourselves. We don't want to sit in the uncomfortability of what's happening around us. We don't want to sit in the uncomfortability of uncertainty. We don't, and again, it leads back to maybe if I get uncomfortable or get uncertain or I start doubting, it will mean I don't trust God enough and I don't believe in his promises. But it also helps you to understand yourself, which is so important because for me, it was if I had really been self aware back then and I had been really honest back then, it wouldn't have taken 7 months for me to get help. It wouldn't have led to a suicide attempt and alcohol addiction. I would have known early on that, you know what, this thing that you've just told me really sucks and I'm not okay and I just want to cry and I just want to whatever it is. And someone would have probably at that point, whether it was a week or two or whatever later, would have been like, I think maybe you should see someone, or do you want to speak about it more? But because I was just like running from myself, oh, guys, I'll be fine. I'm the strong friend and I'll get another job. And yeah, let's just focus on this, then I didn't give myself that to say, you're not okay. Just breathe. And it's okay. People are going through things. You're not the only one going through this. What is it that can be done to get you help? So a practical thing is please sit with yourself, you know. Um, and what I also always encourage people to do is, like for me, I like to walk and I run and I read, like read books for leisure, I journal. Um, when I haven't done that, maybe I haven't walked or run in 3 days or 4 days, and I haven't really read a book, I haven't really journaled, I can, because now I'm more self-aware, I can pick up that, but I haven't done this, you know? And then I have to sit with myself and think, what is happening in my environment that is making me, excuse me, not do the things that I like to do? Then I have to see, is it maybe work pressure? Is it something going on at home? Is something going on with the kids? There's something that is destabilizing me. And if I can't pick it out myself, then I have a life coach. Sometimes I'll speak to her and be like, you know what, I'm not really feeling like myself. Or there's my therapist, you know. Sometimes it may be physical health. I have to go to the GP. But my self-awareness now has led me to, I quickly pick up on when things are off balance. And I'm able to quickly then mitigate that. And I don't allow myself to sit in it for too long, and a week passes and 2 weeks pass until I'm like, oh, okay, let me work on, and so I really would encourage for us to work on our self-awareness, for us to work on sitting with ourselves, for us to write how we are feeling, whether it's good or bad. Your journal is for everything that you're feeling, the good things, the not so good things, because the more you also release whatever emotions you're feeling, good or bad, the more you get to understand yourself and to know yourself. And then have things that you actually like to do, that you can do regularly, whether it's once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week. Do those things, because when you don't do them, is what was also going to help for you to see something is not okay because I'm not doing the things that I enjoy doing, and what is it that is probably causing me not to do those things. And guys, please get help. Please get help. You know, um, go for therapy, go for counseling. We can talk to our friends, we can talk to our family members, but there's so much value in talking to a trained professional and someone who's going to be objective, someone who's going to make you see things in a different way. Because me, I know Zama, I know Busi. I might just be like, oh, friend, maybe it's just, but someone who doesn't know you is going to give you a different way at looking at things, you know. Um, and coming back to the stigma part of things is even going to a psychologist and going to a counselor may seem like, oh, someone might see me, someone might know about it. So I advocate for the toll-free help numbers, your lifelines, your South African depression and anxiety groups. And I always share these things across my social media pages. They have trained people on the other side of the phone, on the other side of email. You can talk to someone whose face you don't know, who doesn't know your face, but you will get the help. You will get the help. Please, 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 please. We don't want you to sit in self-pity, sit in self-doubt, sit in anxiety, sit in depression when there are so many avenues for you to get help. Um, the other thing that you asked, please remind me, because now I'm so focused on the practicality of things. But please remind me of the last point, because I know it's very important for me to answer that.
Um, but before, I think maybe because of the sake of time, we should open up our floor to our audience.
Okay.
Just also share their thoughts, their experiences, if they are comfortable with it, and what they've learned also through their own journeys, and what they would like to teach other viewers who are listening now or who would listen in the future. And then whilst they maybe raise their hands or just drop us comments, they are extremely welcome. I'll remind you, I was talking about how we need to disassociate ourselves from this thing and not necessarily own these things that we are going through. Because I think
Yeah.
once you own them, they become yours. and then you are like sort of like contradicting yourself, because on one hand you're like, I don't want to be going through this, and on the other hand you're like, it's mine, it's mine, it's mine, my this, my that,
Mm.
my. And so that was what I was getting to. Does anyone have any comment, questions that they like to share with us? Okay, whilst, and Anele, you can go ahead and answer us. Thank you.
Okay. Um, Thank you for that question and just reminding me about it. So, yeah, I also think I agree with you, because sometimes we wear it so much and we become this thing, you know. Yes, I am a suicide survivor. Yes, I've overcome depression and all that, but it's just part of who I am, just like I'm a mom, I'm a founder, and all these things. And what I do is when an opportunity like this arises and I talk about my story, I do share about what it is that I went through, because I know it will help someone, but I don't make it an identity like you're saying. Because I've also learned that when you make these things identities, I got into all this because of wearing identities so much. It's part of who I am and it's part of the work that I do. But that's why I say I'm a mental health advocate. Before I then get into the depression, the addiction, the suicide, and all that, I'm a mental health advocate. I have gone through this, I have overcome this, and that's why I do the work that I do. But it's not who I am. It's part of the story, but it's not who I am. And this year on the Tea with Anna Ndlovu, our main theme is we're focusing on GBVF and its impact on mental health. And in June and July, we were actually having conversations with survivors. And we were very intentional that the theme was, a survivor's, what did I call it? A survivor's outlook or surviving GBV. But when we were introducing the survivor, like how you had written on our poster that mental health advocates, we actually wrote what the survivor does because the topic already says surviving GBV. So we know that this is what they've gone through. But they are also an author, they are also an activist, they are also a businesswoman, they are also a career woman. They are more than what has happened to them. And it's us getting into that because people like to box us. People like to characterize us as this thing. And a lot of people, it takes them a lot. And I've experienced this where to this day, there are people close to me, even though I've got 4 years of sobriety, I might be somewhere in an event or anything, and someone might pass a glass of wine, and someone will be like, "No, don't give it to her. She's an alcoholic." And I'm like, um, they were just passing the wine. It was just passing, or the bottle is just on the table. Trust me, I'm not going to drink it. But also, then people still see you as the alcoholic. People still see you as, and I remember even after my suicide attempt where I got home and even the cough mixture was hidden, like everything was, the medicine cabinet was completely empty, and I'm just like, okay, okay, I get it. But even months afterwards I'm like, but come on, it's the cough mixture, it's really. Because people then tie you to that. So don't tie yourself to that. Tell the story around it, but don't tie yourself to that. Like you're saying, you've overcome endo, but the endo warrior, then people will always see you as that. Kanti when you've overcome it, you've survived that. That's why even if someone wants to specifically talk about suicide, it's suicide survivor, not whatever else around suicide. But I'm a mental health advocate who survived suicide, who went through a depression, but there's the positive aspect of it, you know.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Anele. And as we're about to wrap up, I just also feel like I need to share when we were talking about the practical ways of sometimes dealing with these things, um, after having my baby, I know postpartum depression, a lot of people feel like they disconnected to the baby. With me, it was the opposite. I had anxiety because um, of everything that was happening around and having lost loved ones, very close family friend, like my sisters and so on. But it was very traumatic for me. So when I had my baby, I was like, now this baby's outside of me and I've got no more control over, or I don't necessarily know where the baby is at all times. So during that time, I used to even be scared of going up the stairs with the baby because I would think, what if the baby falls and dies? So I was living out this thing of all those ways that me and the baby can die in my mind all the time. And one day during the sessions I had with my psychologist, I started crying. I was like, I feel this way. And he brought the context that because of the amount of loss you've experienced, it feels like it's not far away from you. And
Yeah.
then I remember saying to him, I don't know, like, how do I deal with this? And one of the most impactful ways that he told me to deal with it, which is something I use not just for that season, but till today, is speaking back. And I remember even in the deepest, darkest pit of depression when I was there, I remember the Holy Spirit always saying, you are silent. Answer these things, speak back. And my psychologist then said to me in that moment that, Busi, you need to speak back. And I said, what do I say? He's like, you're gonna have to
Mm.
answer these thoughts. And I said, how does that look like? I'm for sure gonna be admitted. Like now, if my husband walks in and finds me answering something that he doesn't see, I'm gonna be admitted. And he's like, you don't have to be
Yeah.
dramatic about it, but you need to start answering these thoughts. So what he would say to me is that you now are gonna have to, because he wasn't a Christian. But he would say to me, now you're gonna have to tell me if you are really doing this Christian thing or not. That was his thing to me. He's like, because if you really say you believe your God, shouldn't he be able to then protect you from whatever, you know? And so he was like,
Mm.
let's go
Mm.
through the worst case scenario. The baby falls as you're going down the stairs. You break a few bones, Busi, and then the baby will still be fine. And I'm thinking, is the baby really gonna be fine? But what if the baby falls on the head? And then now I'm like, like, because I was going through all the scenarios of the worst case scenario. And he then says to me, don't you guys believe in angels and stuff? Doesn't your God have got like angels? And I was like, I read somewhere in Psalm 91 that his angels take charge of. He's like, so answer that thought with Psalm 91 and tell it, hey, you can't do this because my Lord, he has promised me that his angels they take charge over me, and on my feet do
Yes.
not I do not dash a foot. And I had to start
Against the
answering
stone way.
and I still do it till today because sometimes those voices will creep up, but I've noticed that when you answer them, and especially when you answer them with the word of God, it is so, so powerful. And the other thing that I would also struggle with is that my mind was overly busy. I was overly stimulated most of the time, and I never had quiet. And he said to me, you need to start grabbing your thoughts. And I was like, how do we do that? So I was very like I would like start like okay, let's see if I'm not giving anything. It's like no, you take a hold of that thought and you have to be like this is and he's like, let's say you've got 100 things to do today. But right now, if I'm here in this session with Anele, I have to tell my mind that hey, pot burn in peace. If I forgot to switch off the iron, insurance will have to pay that for that. You understand? Or like something like he's like, answer the thoughts because it's like you do these things to you because it's like, let's say you, for worst case scenario, you forget an iron on. He's like, now you freaking out and everything instead of now planning that, okay, let me now stop what I'm doing and go and switch off the iron. But he's like, you freaking out about it. It's not helping anyone. So now I've also learned sometimes I'm still learning to
Yeah.
really do
Yeah.
this
And
well.
you will be learning and learning and learning.
Yeah, you grab your thoughts, and there's a scripture about that, about bringing every thought subject under the authority of Jesus Christ. And I'm learning about that. And during that time, I was like, I think Jesus came up with this therapy stuff because they really link with what I'm being taught from the Bible. So I just want to also encourage our listeners that some of the practical ways is respond to those thoughts. Don't
Yeah.
run away from them, face them and tell them
Yeah.
who your God is. And in that moment, if whatever you're facing is telling you that you can't, you need to now get scriptures to now answer this thing and tell it why you can. And the other thing is set boundaries. Your yes shouldn't be free. It should be very expensive.
Yeah.
And your no too, don't be overly available, and eat well. And I cannot stress the resting, like Anele said. My 4-year-old is very self-aware. There was one time where she decided to just abruptly take a nap. We woke her up, we're like, oh, why did you sleep? She's like, because if I don't, I get very grumpy, and I didn't want to be. And I'm like, oh, maybe that's why I'm grumpy sometimes. And so my husband's thing, when I'm grumpy, my husband's first thing was like, when last did you eat? How many hours did you sleep?
Hmm.
You understand? And it's not him being funny or trying to tease me. It's just checking the boxes, like, did you do the basics?
Yes.
And so
Yes.
I just wanted also to put that out there, that you need to do that. And okay, I see someone put something in the chat, and she's like, it's Zama. She says, thank you, ladies. Cues on practical. She's like, did your diet change for the worse during the dark depressive phase? How did you improve how you ate? Busisiwe, can you also touch on also, okay, I can touch on that also. So my diet at that point, I think I was just eating anything in sight that could go in, because at that point I had nothing to lose and nothing to gain. Everything was just like, vanity, vanity, vanity at that point in my life. But through prayer, when I then started introducing the smoothie, and I always tell people, I did not get well from a point of, I want to now change my diet. And no, I didn't do all that. It's when I started drinking my smoothie and I started feeling like, okay, I'm now feeling the change. I started wondering what I can do to make things better. And how that looked like was that my hormones started feeling more balanced. So
Mm.
sugary things, I didn't eat them. I was teasing Anele the first time we met when she told me she's off of sugar, because I was
Mm.
like, oh, you're off of sugar. And so sugary things, I would stay away from them. Um, Something that is too salty or oily, I started moving away from them. I used to be that girl: when I'm sad, I eat. When I'm happy, I eat.
Mhm.
I'm angry, I eat. Let's celebrate, eat. Let's cry, eat. Eating, I
I
used
was
to eat my
I was the
emotions.
I was the complete opposite. I did not eat. I did not eat.
I used to
I
eat
would
my emotions.
I solved my emotions.
And so I would eat. And I didn't realize this until one day when I was in fasting and praying and I was driving, and I got some news that really made me sad in that moment. And I thought to myself, where can I find the closest Krispy Kreme? And then in that moment, the Holy Spirit's like, dude, you're fasting. And I said, you see this thing about fasting now, I can't go for Krispy Kreme. He's like, yes, but now turn to me. And that's when I learned that we need to also deal with our emotions and not eat them. When
Mm.
something makes you sad, be sad. You understand me?
Yes.
You're not, if something makes you angry, be angry, but don't burn anything down. Please don't hurt anyone. Be angry, but safe at the same time. And if something makes you happy, try to express it too.
Mm.
Just
Mm.
try to be and feel so that you can move away from these things, and that you can like also feel it and not try to be a robot. When after having my baby and life was lifing, I went for a checkup with my gynae. She had one look at me and she said to my husband, we are losing her. And she said to me, you look at me in my eyes, you are not gonna do this thing where you're gonna be mbogot. We don't do that. You hear me? You are human, and you are gonna feel what you need to feel, and you're gonna move on from this. And and that was the first time someone relieved me from having to be superwoman. And in that moment, I could just let
Mm.
loose and be like, I am a mess. And so I always
Yeah.
appreciate my
Yeah.
guide, because she saw me, she saw where I was at. And so that is some of the practical things. And then the diet, Zama. I think I think eating a lot of greens has also started helping me, because I've realized that like eating the healthy things, like having, and not juice from the store, maybe blending together a few greens that you buy with some beetroot, some dates. Because now I'm trying to get my family off of sugar. Pray for me. It's really not that easy, but I try to put in dates and stuff. So make it your recipe. I enjoy pineapple. I enjoy mango. Sometimes I'll then sneak in a few green things in there. Then I get to drink and eat that. Just do practical things. We've moved away from using a lot of oil in my house. We use olive oil and butter sometimes. But like in terms of frying things, I don't do that. I put a lot of things in the
Mm,
oven or the air fryer. So that is me just working towards like eating less oily things. And then I try to have more fruits. I do have my days where I indulge. Pray for your girl because winter she indulged in scones. I had a good time. But now I'm moving away from that. Try to walk also. Try to walk. Try to like the goal is to have more healthy things than the junk, right? Have your oats. I was talking to a few students and I was telling them that the food our grandparents were eating back in the day in the villages, they were eating the right food. They might not have known how to cook the food because it was mostly terrible. But anyway, they did not know how to make it nice, but it was healthy. Eat your spinach, eat it, make it nice. Broccoli I was amazed the other day. We took broccoli and we put a bit of butter and garlic on it and we fried it and it was nice and I was actually shocked. And these are some of the things that you can eat. We are working on releasing recipes for ladies so that they can actually see what it looks like to eat in alignment with biblical principles. And then that was what we did there. And then I see another comment from Portia. She says, "Thank you, Busi and Anele, for sharing so openly. Conversations like these remind us that looking after our mental wellness is a shared responsibility, and it is okay to seek support when we need it. As the Word of God reminds us in Galatians 6:2, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. We are not meant to walk this life journey alone, and there is strength in supporting one another with compassion, grace, and understanding. Thank you so much for creating a space that encourages openness and hope. I'm so glad that that brought you that because that was my prayer. Um, that ladies we can, and even gentlemen, that we can come and just speak about the wellness. I think we've lost Anele. We'll just give her a few minutes to see if she can come back on. And yeah, and thank you for also joining, and please get the help. The word of the Bible says that trust in God and lean not on in your own understanding. Acknowledge him in all your ways and he will direct your path. Prayers, when they are answered, are usually inconvenient. God does not choose a comfortable way to usually answer our prayers. Sometimes that means going to the doctor. Sometimes that means um, eating healthy and staying away from scones, Busi. I'm speaking to myself. Sometimes it means eating and even doing the uncomfortable things, like taking a walk. I mean, like when we've got deadlines and stuff, and you're thinking, oh, should I walk or should I do this? Take the walk because you are investing in the future you. And we are praying when we always pray that Lord give us long life, but let us do our part to have that long life. Eat the vegetables, and not just you, but teach your children to eat the vegetables. Drink the water. Do you know the best thing for your skin is water? Nothing moisturizes you more than water does. Just simple, plain old water. It doesn't have to be fancy. Just drink the water. Such things that it's usually the simple things that we find difficult to do. Because if someone had to give a difficult formula that you have to do this, that, your mind would think, okay, this will work because it has to be so challenging, but it's not always that complicated. And that is also what I would like to just put out there tonight. And I don't know, is there anyone brave enough to put on their mic and just share anything with us that you've learned during the session? Please, please do say something. Hello.
Okay, I'll be brave.
Thank you, Mel.
Hi, Lucy. Hi, Nella. Hi, ladies. I've noticed there is, I don't, was it, oh, okay, there is a few guys. There is a few guys who've joined. Okay, so it was just ladies in the beginning. I know that it is harder for men to talk about what they go through and to actually seek out counseling and things like that. So to see a few guys on the platform, I commend you. And this is such, I think it's the step in the right direction when God wants to bring healing in. For myself personally, when Boosie said, don't burn down anything, get angry. I think that resonated with me so much so because of what I've been through in my life. And I have faced many obstacles. I mean, abuse, growing up, and, challenges in my life, and then going through a divorce at a very young age, within 6.5 years of marriage. And it broke me to the point where I got rebellious before the depression set in. I was already depressed in the marriage, but obviously it had gotten worse. And I literally went and maxed out every card. I wouldn't eat though. When I was throughout the first few months, it was hard to eat, and then after that, the eating started. But yeah, I went and maxed out every card, cut my hair really short, and I'm a girl who has long hair like all the time. Went like through this phase where just changed my dressing, changed who I was, and then I started going and seeing a counseling psychologist. And not that I stopped praying, I continued to pray, I continued to trust in God, but my emotions were all over the place. Here I was this young woman who had done everything right, lived my life according to the word of God. I wasn't perfect, but kept myself for marriage, kept my purity, did the things that was foundational and important. And here I was still going through a divorce, still dealing with a husband that had cheated, that had emotionally abused me, sometimes bordering on physical. And the last straw for me was the fact that he had an affair, and more than one affair. And I had found out um, like in such a bizarre way that it just floored me. But I resonate with what Busi and Anila are saying. You need people around you. You need a circle of friends who can pray you through, who can speak to you, who's not going to judge you for what you've been through, but know that everyone goes through struggles. And during that time, who can lift you up, who's not going to talk bad about you behind your back, who's going to pray with you. It's not going to say, oh, she deserved it or he deserved it. No, who's going to be real with you and say, listen, I want to help you. Maybe today you just need a hug from me, or just phoning up and checking on you, or taking you out to have a meal, or whatever it may be when you're going through that. But it's so important to be in that kind of circle. And I think your circle is really important when you're going through that. Close family, close friends who know how to stand by you and support you, and going for those counseling sessions, making the changes required to adapt. And I'm so glad that Busi has opened up this platform with Anelia, because we don't, as believers, we do not often talk about mental wellness, depression, what we've been through, or suicide, because we consider it taboo, and it shouldn't be that way. Whether it's in the Indian community or the Black community or the white community, color community, it doesn't matter. It's considered taboo in every community. But as a Christian community as a whole, we consider it taboo as well, because we've brought it in and we've made it a religious thing. But God doesn't consider it taboo. He knows that the enemy is coming to attack you. He knows there's things that need to be balanced in your body, and there's a way to do it naturally. And he's given us the opportunity and the chance to take that path, and he leads us there. He's tougher on others than on some, he's tougher on others than he is on some other people. But because he knows why I'm laughing. But sometimes in his toughness, it's because of how strong we are and how strong we are built, where that's the only way to be with us, because of how strong-headed we are and how stubborn we are. He also has to be strong-willed in the sense that he has to lay down certain rules for us to follow to help us build that routine so we can get into it, so it becomes a good habit and we don't start to falter onto the bad habits whenever we have an issue or whenever we fall down. So I'm grateful for this platform. I'm so grateful for the stories that y'all have shared. And they're not just stories that are written in a book somewhere from some faraway land, but it's from our country, it's from our people. And it really encourages me to know that I'm not alone, that I've also suffered with depression. So I did attempt suicide when I was younger, in my 20s. Thought about it growing up all through my childhood because of having such a difficult childhood. But I'm grateful to God. I survived the first attempt and I never tried again. And then I started going and doing the counseling, and it helped. It helped putting those guards into place where I was now able to then stand on my feet and cope and then grow stronger and become more determined, in the sense that I wanted to live, I wanted to have a good life, and I wanted to have all that God has in store for me. And one of the things that I had prayed for was to have a child. I could not fall pregnant. I was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome from a very young age. And God blessed me. Had I taken my life and had I lost my life, I would not have seen the fruit of that come to pass. So, and God healed me and he worked in me. And so I know that each of you have a beautiful testimony. And I think this is such a beautiful platform to share on. There's so much that I want to say, but I don't want to say too much because I can go on. If we have to start from everything that has happened in my entire life, we will be here the entire night. Maybe we should write a book, everyone together, share a story. And the testimony about what God has done for us. I think that would be amazing. And we can encourage other people out there in the community as well. But I'm so grateful for this platform. Thank you so much, Busi. Thank you so much, Anele. Thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you for opening it up to everyone. And I've just been sharing it on my status and sharing it with everyone that I'm talking to. And yeah, I just think that this is such an awesome opportunity for people to open up, to share their stories. Do not be ashamed of who you are and what you've been through. Do not allow the world to judge you. No one is allowed to judge you. Because God says that we should not judge, and in turn, he does not judge us if we do not judge. So know that you are loved by a Father who loves you completely and wholly, exactly as you are. And he is going to bring the healing as you need it, and he is going to bring the restoration. There is hope at the end of this journey. It's not loss. It is gained. It is blessings, and it's your life gained, and it's your ministry gained, because every one of us are called for ministry, even though it's in different forms. It may be in business, some may be a platform, a church. It might be someone who just greets the people that walk in with a smile every Sunday, and that might be the only person who greets them and smiles at them on a Sunday or in the week and wishes them well and asks them how they are. Everyone has a ministry, whether it's the usher at the door, whether it's the person who takes the offering, or whatever it is that you're going to do, or even in your workplace or in your community, where you just share your story of redemption and what God has done for you. We all have a story. We all have a ministry, and we all have a gifting and calling. And some of us may not have to stand on a platform and preach. Some of us do not need our own churches. We just need to do what God has called us to do, and know that our stories and our lives matter, and that whatever you've been through, whatever you have been through, however you have felt, it matters to God. And because whatever matters to you matters to God, he has complete control of the best in store for you if you just keep your eyes on him. So thank you so much for tonight. I'm so grateful. Even my son, I had him listening in a little bit, and then he disappeared to the kitchen, because teenagers can only sit still for a certain amount of time, and then they want to disappear from their mothers. But I also had him listening, so he was also a little bit keen. But he kind of stepped away for a little bit now, I think, just to go and get some snacks. Always snacking. But thank you so much. And I hope the little bit I've shared, even though it's been a bit split, I hope you take a little bit from it. And yeah, share your story. Never be ashamed to share your story, because your story could save somebody else's life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mel. We appreciate you sharing and trusting us with the story and your personal story. And God is a God of restoration. I don't know a lot of things in life, but I know He's faithful and He's a God of restoration. And I just pray that He restores you and He strengthens you and you get to the other side. And
Amen. I received that.
amen.
Amen.
And we have a comment, Anele, if you don't mind, please answering this one. It's from Zimhlophe. How do you take away the fear of being a burden to people who really care about you when you want to state your problem to them? Anele.
I'm here. Please, can you repeat it?
Okay, it's from Zimhlophe. How do you take away fear of being a burden to people who really care about you when you want to state your problem to them?
Hmm. Yeah, it's not a hard one because you've said they care about you, who really care about you. So you know they care about you. Trust me, you're not a burden to them. And you would know if you're a burden because how they would probably act around you and maybe the comments they would say, or you would hear how someone says they speak about you. But if they really care about you, you won't be a burden and they're actually going to want to continue helping you. Um, I think when I moved back home, because I had been independent for so long and I had done things but for myself and by myself for so long, it took me a very long time to receive the help from my parents and help from my siblings because I was like, I should be doing things this way. I've been doing things for myself, but I couldn't at that moment. And they told me so many times, we can't do this for you. We can't do this with you. We want to be there for you, until I was able to actually believe it and trust it and be like, okay, let me just receive the help. So, if people are really genuinely wanting to be there for you. And you will also know when people are not really genuine about how they care about you. You'll know. So the fact that you know that they really care, accept the help, tell them how you feel, tell them what you are struggling with if you can speak to them. But I think we're also very hard on ourselves that, oh my goodness, because I also go through this, like, but it's been 6 years since this thing happened, and sometimes I don't see the lights, and you guys have been carrying me and whatever. And they just like, one day things will get better, you know, one day things will get better. And so just lean on them lean on them because you also probably know that you have people who can lean on you because you understand the season that you're in and what you're going through. So if you do like how Melanie said, if you have people around you, lean on those people. Your community is so important. And I said this earlier on that I knew that I would have support when I came out of admission. And if you have the support, lean on the support. If people really care for you, they won't mind helping you. And when they do start minding, you'll also see there'll be a shift in how they speak, there'll be a shift in how they show up.
Thank you so much for that answer, Nele. As we're about to wrap up, the only comment I have on this Zimhlophe is that remember we said that God does answer prayers and he doesn't necessarily answer them how you want him to answer it. So let's say you are in a season where you need help and him touching and giving you favor with your loved ones to help you is a love language from him, and those people that he has used that are saying to you, we've got this much love and we want to share it with you. give them that love back by receiving. And it's sometimes something that I struggle with too, because I sometimes feel like I'm a burden, but I realize that I need to love them too and trust them enough to pour into me when I'm empty and pour in and help me where they can. Anele, what are your last thoughts, or what is the last thing you would like to say to everyone logged in that you, what is that one thing that is burning that you'd like to just wrap up tonight's live with the webinar with?
Yes, yes. Thank you, firstly, to you for this time. I really do appreciate it. It was a great engagement. And I think just lastly, like, get to know yourself. Don't run from yourself, don't hide from yourself. Spend time with yourself, cultivate that self-love, cultivate the self-respect. They really do open you up to your healing. They open you up to transformation. They open you up to other relationships. So just, yeah, I would say that, because from the self-awareness, from the self-love, from the self-respect, other things that are positive, other things that are good are going to come from that. I know, I live that. I live that now that I don't run from myself and I allow myself to be and to feel and to go through things, but I also don't stay in them. And it all comes because I know myself better. So just get to know yourself better. You will definitely thank yourself now, and you'll definitely thank yourself later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anele. Thank you so much. Thank you for making time to spend time with us this evening and just pouring into us. And I pray that God will just fill you up more and, just continue using you on even bigger platforms, and just as you go out and glorify his name and make his name known. And I pray blessings over you. And I thank you so much for taking this time and just pouring into us. And for everyone who has tuned in, thank you so much for tuning in. And you know, there's a few scriptures that I've been meditating on, and one of them is in John as we close. It's when, let me just check it. I don't want to misquote it. It says it's in John, it's in the third book of John. I don't know how to say it, John 3, chapter 1. I think it's verse 3. Um, no, it's verse 2. It says, Beloved, I pray that you may prosper in all things and be in health, just as your soul prospers. And my prayer for everyone tuned in and who even tune in at a later stage is that don't neglect your mental health. Your mental wellness deserves the attention that you would give a wound that you see on your leg. Just because it's invincible doesn't mean that it is not real. And the other thing is that speak back to those thoughts. Answer them with the scriptures, answer them with the word of God, and see how you overcome. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. And I really appreciate you taking time to be with us, all of you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to my husband for making this possible, because he's the tech guy in the background. So thank you so much. Have a lovely evening, and please continue creating that environment for healing. Thank you, ladies. Good night.
Thank you.
Good
Bye.
night.
Bye.
Bye.